Welcome to Leaders in the Arena. My name is Jenny Whitener, and I am the CEO of Bridge Innovate. We are a global network of business strategists, consultants, and designers that team up with you to spark distinctive strategy, courageous leadership, and agile change. Our podcasts are designed to share valuable insights and lessons from our network to support your growth journey. Today's session is Embracing Diversity, My Crucible Moment. We're excited to share with you today our special guest, Carrie Harper, to share her story around embracing diversity and her crucible moment. She currently serves as a Sustainability Sourcing and Supplier Diversity Manager at Shaw Industries. Her role includes maintaining alignment with compliance, legal, sustainability, and diversity and inclusion strategies and initiatives. She's a major contributor to the Women's Innovation Network and with Fabric to support the API community. And without further ado, I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Carrie Harper. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you, Miss Jenny. I'm glad to be here.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience in terms of letting them get to know you?
I think that sums it up pretty well.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story today. And I'd like to just start with maybe illuminating your perspective on diversity and inclusion in that crucible moment. Can you share with us an experience that was the catalyst for your personal awakening of the power of D&I?
Absolutely. I can look back on several moments, points in my life that have been foundational in my D&I journey. However, it's an experience I had in 2014 with Leadership Calhoun, Gordon County, that I consider the seed that started my diversity and inclusion journey, my search, so to speak. Specifically an exercise that we completed called SimSoc, which is short for Simulated Society. There were 4 classes or groups within SimSoc. The green room, where the perceived wealth was plentiful, the red room being those that were in poverty, and then 2 classes in between that represented the middle class. And just to rewind a little bit, to give a little bit more context, all of my life I've been firmly entrenched in the middle. I never gave a second thought to where I would sleep or where my next meal would come from. However, because my parents were extremely frugal, I did not know the extras that a lot of children of middle-class homes today know. I naively thought I had it very rough, Jenny, and I thought others had it so much better than me. But I don't believe it was an accident that I was placed on the green room, where the perceived wealth was plentiful. It challenged the way that I viewed life and, how I looked at the world around me today. While we had more than enough to sustain ourselves, we struggled with not needing each other to survive and finding the balance of growing what we had and putting something productive back into the community. I began to see it went beyond just giving to the community. The true question was what the needs of the community were. If we did not have the right resources, utilizing them wisely and listening to individuals that were passionate about seeing the community succeed, we were not going to be able to truly make an impact. At work and in life, I've been guilty of saying perception is reality and accepting that statement, but thinking about it in relation to our community, I began to challenge myself. If I was relying solely on my perception, I was assuming I knew the needs of our community or the others' ability to contribute to those needs. If we're not asking the questions to what the needs truly are or how each person has come to be where they are today, we're not empathetic, and we're not effectively utilizing ourselves as a resource. I began questioning more and digging deeper, making sure the questions that I asked and the support I offered got to the heart of the matter. That exercise truly was a catalyst for my D&I journey.
Amazing. I hear you telling that story, I hear aspects of very deep empathy, right? Sort of in an experiential way, beginning to understand where you are in the context of the world and what others may be experiencing in a deep way, really listening to them and almost feeling, right? Having the experience of beginning to try to understand the feelings that they have based on their environment. So it sounds like it was a very powerful experience that created this huge, deep awakening for you. So why is
Absolutely.
diversity and inclusion so important to you?
There's a few things that I would kind of answer with that. I'm a daughter of a veteran. My mother-in-law was Taiwanese. So I'm raising teenage daughters that have Asian heritage. And I'm a female with a career that is manufacturing adjacent, which has a great opportunity for female representation. I'd say early in my career, I was very naive to the many attributes of my story and how those could impact my journey. During my first role at Shaw, I managed credit for customers in New York and Connecticut. And being from South Alabama, that was a very eye-opening experience in how to effectively communicate and work with people, not only of different backgrounds, but diverse backgrounds. I realized during that role that it was particularly important to understand the individual and the importance of building inclusive relationships. As my career progressed, I began to realize the importance of self-advocacy, mentorship, sponsorship, and the importance of a network. And I'm very fortunate that I work at Shaw, where they, foster diverse and inclusive work environments. One of those aspects being the many associate resource groups, or ARGs, as we call them. Um, while I participated for many years in our Women's Innovation Network, or WIN, 5 years ago, I was offered the opportunity to lead the communications subcommittee, and the positive impact of that leadership role, cannot be overstated. The network of women that I've been able to work with, been so fortunate to work with, I should say, have been the ones that have challenged me to grow, encouraged me to be my authentic self, have taught me to advocate for myself, others, and probably most importantly, advocate for my daughters.
Very interesting, just hearing you talk about this defining moment, this experience that you had, where I think many of us, when we're trying to really understand diversity and inclusion, maybe it's important for us to lean in to a new experience that awakens us. I think
Mhm.
that is something important I'm hearing you call us to do. Then the next thing I hear you say is that you began to build deep empathy, and that is really listening, trying to get a broad kind of, I would almost call it like a 360-degree
Mhm.
perspective of others. And then I'm hearing you go all the way to action. Like, if
Mhm.
I am aware and I understand the value of engaging and supporting and nurturing others, then how do I take that to action?
Mhm.
And so you shared a little bit about that journey that you've been able to lead at Shaw Industries. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the programs that you all have been leading and the impact that that's had for you personally and how it shaped others' behaviors?
Absolutely. Surrounding and seeking out individuals that think, look, and believe differently than I do has provided me the opportunity to grow in ways that I could not have planned, Jenny. My hope is that these programs and these events, these associate resource groups, are the catalyst for others to dig deeper and level up their D&I engagement, much like the SimSoc exercise for me. When we all seek to understand the individual, we truly will be demonstrating inclusive leadership and creating those positive futures for the next generations.
Just makes the word rich is coming to my mind, that by sort of really immersing yourself and getting action oriented,
Mhm.
it makes life richer, right? For
Mhm.
all those engaged, and more meaningful, more purposeful. I can just see all those kinds of attributes coming to life when you start to share more of the story and the impacts that you're having. How has diversity and inclusion impacted your life personally? And then on the flip side of that, if you would also share it personally, because I think it's hard to really separate those two things. We are both a
Absolutely.
human, we have personal perspective, and we're both a professional, right? So share with us a little bit about how diversity and inclusion has shaped you in those two dimensions.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many different directions I could take that answer. I guess to touch on first the professional aspect, the power of D&I has broadened my thoughts and allowed me the opportunity to meet individuals that I wouldn't necessarily have met during my day job or my role, so to speak. These are the individuals that challenge me to step out of my comfort zone championed my ideas regarding D&I and advocated for me across the organization and even outside of the organization, like you, Jenny, giving me this opportunity to share my story. Personally, I hope that my daughters see what it looks like to be a strong and respected female in the workforce. I hope they see me advocating for myself and for others and have a strong sense of self to do the same. I've been able to share with them the amazing work that I've gotten to do with our WIN ARG and now our Fabric ARG for the Asian Pacific Islander community. They've even gotten to meet several of the amazing leaders that I get to work with. My oldest even got to work with one of my WIN counterparts on a school project. So the network of, personal and professional kind of came together in that way. So diversity and inclusion has, also impacted my life personally, and that I'm raising two daughters who are very proud of their Asian heritage. And while my oldest daughter, Hadley, does favor my husband's side of the family, many would not realize that they have an Asian heritage if they were to see the girls walking down the street. And because they're so proud, they often share with people they meet about their grandmother. Given, how proudly they share, they face some bullying from their classmates. And we've had to have some difficult conversations at home. And Jenny, I felt very unprepared for many of those. An example, during one of Hadley's classes, they were watching a film on the Vietnam War. Vietnamese was being spoken, and Hadley was jokingly asked to translate. She was immediately offended and reminded them that she was Taiwanese. However, the jokes continued, and while her hurt was valid, I attempted to talk with her about the power of calling people into a conversation, not calling them out. But she was still hurt. So I hope that the seed was planted of leading with grace and inviting people into that discussion to educate them on the power of their words and their biases. Unfortunately, she's had another very recent situation that she experienced that, I had to help guide her through. She called me on the phone, and as soon as she answered, she said, "Someone just asked me where I was from." And she said she didn't realize in the moment what was happening because she'd never been asked that before. And it said Georgia on her name tag. So she responded with Georgia and pointed to her name tag, but the individual asked a couple more times, not getting the answer she was looking for. And she finally asked the question and pointed at Hadley's eyes. Hadley said she was immediately just kind of taken aback and floored by the question. But she responded and said, "I'm from Georgia, but my grandmother was from Taiwan." She and I discussed the impact of profiling and what she has faced in these two situations others individuals experience daily. I realized as a white woman, I sat in a place of privilege. It didn't mean I hadn't, faced struggles of my own, but it meant that I sat in a place of privilege, not ever having to face the struggles the Asian community had faced. How do I have these conversations with my daughter? How do I equip her for these situations? And this is the intersection of that professional network and the personal network. This community that I have that can rely, I can rely on to help me educate and ultimately educate my daughters.
That just, hearing that story and how powerful it is, because I can hear in that story how much has it affected you personally, how much it's affected you professionally. And at the heart of this movement, diversity and inclusion, the naming convention itself is so powerful that each of us as humans are very diverse. Sometimes it's not as obvious to us visually, but we all are very unique in who we are as humans. And how do we celebrate that? In every aspect, to be inclusive, right? To bring us all together, to celebrate the common threads of humanity that we have, and to learn from one another, to learn and to be richer because we have learned, we have explored and made these connections, to be aware of the fragility of relationships and to be respectful, it sounds like, of some of that fragile nature until we build those aspects of trust and the ability to have good, strong conversations. What an amazing story. My heart goes out to
Yeah,
you as a mom and
yeah.
as a professional as you're navigating that. Can you talk a little bit about Shaw's commitment to supplier diversity and the role that you play there?
Absolutely. So around the same time that I was asked to be involved with WIN's, leadership role, that communications subcommittee, I was also offered the opportunity to lead Shaw's supplier diversity initiatives. And I was initially a little bit unsure of that opportunity. But I leaned in and said yes. And it's been that intersection of impacting the community, but also impacting the enterprise as well. And very exciting piece of my D&I journey. At Shaw, we strive for diversity and inclusion among our associates and our supplier base. We define supplier diversity as proactively providing equal access to Shaw's purchasing opportunities to all qualified suppliers. We want to promote supplier participation that's reflective of Shaw's diverse customers and the local communities that we live and work in. We believe having a strong supplier diversity strategy, it's strategic for bringing more innovation to our business and opening up new markets for growth.
I think that sounds fantastic. And I want to personally thank you as a certified woman-owned small business. You've been an advocate for us to make sure that our certification as a woman-owned business gets recognized by Shaw. But I think the important thing that I hear is just the major commitment that Shaw has strategically and the importance that this has to them as a company and to their future. But I also want to pull out something I just heard you in that story say. One was that you shared earlier about how this was a big part of your purpose. This is a personal thing that in aspect diversity and inclusion has real purpose for you. But then you're asked to take on this role, and that's a demonstration of courage because you're saying, I hadn't done this before. And isn't it interesting when courage, we are given opportunities to do things we haven't done before, and purpose collide? It gives you such momentum. You're like, I'm going to make this happen. I just
Yes.
sense that with you, right? That you had a real strong purpose. You had the courage to take it on. Your leadership believed in you. And look at all the great things that you've been able to mobilize around this strategic commitment for
Mhm.
Shaw with supplier diversity. I think that's great. What kind of impact are you seeing with Shaw's supplier diversity? How is it making a difference?
So we do have spend goals related to our supplier diversity spend. And in the past 2 years, we've seen those numbers increase significantly. And I will say in large part that's due to tools that we've used to enrich our data and make sure that we have our suppliers categorized properly. But the more exciting part is the positive impact that has happened with our associates and their passion around D&I and what they're doing to bring diverse small suppliers into our supply chain. And a very real example of why it matters, partnering with small business. I'll share a story about, we had a mill tour going on, and one of the customers asked the Shaw leader if they'd heard of a company called Sasha Handmade, which is a woman-owned small business that makes jewelry from yarn. So our Shaw team engaged with Sasha Handmade's founder, Sarah McClelland, and a collaboration was born that brought together Shaw fiber, right, from our carpet, and the handmade jewelry in an influencer kit. And given the overwhelming positive response from our customers, Shaw's continued to collaborate with Sasha, and additional projects have been formed and positively impacting her business strategy, and that she recognized the need for additional staff. So if we begin to look at, these partnerships beyond a single supplier and all the small and diverse suppliers that we have in our supply chain we're doing business with, and the volume of spend of a company enterprise like Shaw Industries, we can positively impact the communities we work in by bringing jobs, income, and tax revenue to those areas. So it's so much more than just the right thing to do, Jenny. There's an
It is,
economic benefit for both the communities and for Shaw. And that's where it
right.
gets really exciting, right? Is getting to find
Yeah.
fulfillment, in that positive impact.
Amazing. I mean, I love that story showing that community impact, nurturing that small business, finding that synergy. And it came from an employee. The
Mhm,
introduction came from an associate. That's
mhm.
fantastic. What suggestions do you have for others who are looking to launch or mature a multifaceted diversity and inclusion strategy?
So I would look at it, I guess, from a few different standpoints. From an enterprise standpoint, leadership support is foundational. When I look at Shaw and the executive leadership, engagement, involvement in our strategies and our initiatives, it's clear that demonstrating inclusive leadership is more than important. It's critical to those leading our organization. From a specific, I guess, program or initiative standpoint, if you were to look at supplier diversity, for example, benchmarking conversations, peer conversations, leadership conversations, and more conversations to bring awareness and diversity of ideas and needs, right? You want to build that excitement around these things that you're doing, and you want to bring awareness to it. So asking the questions of how might we, or could we, or did you know, to all of these, business counterparts that may be able to influence the supply chain by bringing small, diverse businesses in. And then finally, from a personal perspective, I don't think I would be nearly, as involved today if I hadn't sought an area of D&I that I was passionate about. That's the areas that I'm going to bring the most fulfillment, add the most value to the organization. I'm going to be personally fulfilled. And when groups or individuals are fulfilling their own passions, each is unique but valuable. And I recently read a quote. It was simple, but it really struck me and kind of summarized my view on diversity and inclusion. And it was, a garden's beauty never lies in one flower.
Beautiful. A garden's beauty never lies in one flower.
You don't look at that just single flower, right? You look at the whole garden and think it's beautiful. So if you're bringing together all of these diverse perspectives and thoughts and ideas.
A garden's beauty never lies just in one flower. Carrie, it's been great to have you with us today as a guest to share your story and commitment to diversity and inclusion. You are a poster child for us about how to have the courage and the personal commitment, and how that links to passion to really make a difference in a very grand way. Thank you for all that you do for our communities and for diversity and inclusion generally. We ask all the leaders who join us in our podcast series, do they have a bit of advice to share with other leaders in the arena? Anything you'd like to share?
I think the thing that I guess I've realized or learned in my career at this point, and I've touched on a little bit, but the importance of a network, right? That network is going to serve you both personally and professionally. They're going to be the individuals that hold you up, hold you accountable, encourage you, cheer you on, mentor, sponsor you throughout your career. So just take advantage of every opportunity to network throughout your career, and ask, can I have a conversation? Can I talk with you about your role? I've not met an individual yet, Jenny, that said no. So those are always the most enriching conversations, and you never know what type of relationship may build from that.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for today's session, Embracing Diversity, My Crucible Moment, with our special guest, Carrie Harper of Shaw Industries. It's been great having you here. And we hope to have you with us again at Leaders in the Arena with Bridge Innovate. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.